It's another episode of Magic the PROthering.
That's right. We're once again on the 4th episode of Magic the PROthering.
Even though we have recorded more than 4 episodes.
Yes. In fact, I meant to count, but I didn't.
Neither did I. I actually have literally no idea what number episode this is.
Once again, this Magic the PROthering is brought to you by you, the patrons of the podcast. Thank you all so much for your continued Oh, boy.
Go ahead. Start that part over.
Yep. All right. Good morning.
Good morning,
Okay. Once again, Magic the PROthering is brought to you by you, the patrons. Thank you so much for your continued support of the show. It keeps the lights on, the cameras running, and us sitting in chairs. Because naturally we lift out of them.
Yeah, I would never be able to sit in a chair without you guys.
Yeah.
Big time. And of course, we have to thank our sponsor, cardkingdom.com/MTAcast. Head over there for all of your singles or any kind of Magic paraphernalia you need. You can always ask for them to put a Magic the Amateuring sticker in your order, and they are so good that they will.
Maria, who is on our 4th episode of Magic the PROthering this week?
Well, Megan, this is a guest that we've had a lot of requests for.
That's very true.
Yeah, and it was just about time. You know, we put it off for a while, and finally we decided, no, we're going to give the people what they want.
That's right. Usually we try and adamantly deny people what they want.
Yeah,
they ask for something
true.
And we're like, definitely not.
No, definitely not.
But here we are.
But here we are. Our guest, I'm going to read his accolades. It's Reid Duke, by the way. It's Reid Duke, everybody. He won the Magic Online Championship in 2011. He's got a 5th place at Pro Tour Journey into next 7th place at Pro Tour Eldritch Moon, runner-up finish in the 2013 World Championship, wins at GP Nashville, Miami, Portland, Oakland, and very recently GP Louisville. He also writes a ton of articles, records gameplay videos for Channel Fireball, is a color commentator for Wizards of the Coast, and a universally acknowledged great guy. Reid Duke, welcome to Magic the PROthering.
Hey Maria, hey Megan, and hey everybody. Thanks a lot for inviting me on the show.
Absolutely.
Thanks for coming on the show.
So we usually...
and for the special 4th episode nonetheless.
Yes.
Yeah.
A very special 4th episode.
We saved it for you.
Yeah.
We usually start the interviews off just kind of, you know, playing a little game of getting to know you. And I just wanted to know, for you, your Magic career started pretty early. You were really young. Just give us all a little bit of a background and how you started and learned to play Magic.
Well, I've pretty much played Magic my whole life. I started when I was 5 years old. And yeah, I mean, I've definitely played to varying degrees of seriousness and with varying consistency, but for the most part I've been, you know, a lifelong Magic player. I've never really quit the game, and yeah, I started playing more seriously around the time I got out of college, and I've been a pro player for about 5 or 6 years.
5 years old?
Wow. Maria, are you still doing any hobbies that you had when you were 5?
I mean, you know, like eating with my fingers and...
Yes. I was going to go with, like, walking.
Oh, yeah.
I think that
that's a hobby.
Yeah, that's one thing that I've managed to hold on to for that long. That's super impressive. Can you tell us a little bit more about, like, how that transition went from being a casual player to, like, becoming a competitive player and eventually making the Pro Tour?
Well, I always had, like, a competitive eye towards the game, put it that way. Like I always went to play, you know, the local tournament on Sundays at the local shop. So I always, you know, was trying to be competitive with Magic even since I was pretty little. And I had my older brother and a few other friends that were like, you know, they read Magic content, which was at the time was in like Inquest magazine or, you know, very early days of internet Magic on the dojo, and so they'd have like really like, you know, cutting edge decks and stuff like that, and I would lose to them all the time, and then I'd just have to, you know, like trial by fire, make my deck a little bit better so I could compete. So yeah, that was sort of like the early days of my career, and I always, you know, liked Magic a lot and wanted to be as good as I could be. Then when I was in college, I started playing Magic Online a lot, which that's a big transition because just like the sheer volume that you can play and the number of different opponents that you can face goes up so quickly. You know, you go from going once a week to play against the 6 or 7 people that show up at the shop to having every single Magic player in the entire universe, on your computer to play against. So that was, I'd say, a big moment playing a lot of Magic Online, and that's actually the way I qualified for the Pro Tour in the first place, winning the Magic Online Championships. And then, coinciding pretty closely with graduating school, I got on the Pro Tour and haven't really looked back since then.
I'm curious to know what you studied in school.
Economics.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah, I've yet to do anything useful with that degree. That's what I studied.
Well, I'm using my theater degree every day.
Yes.
Let me tell you that.
I've always heard that economics is very impractical. It's not something that you see used every day.
But I bet you know when to sell a card.
Yeah, I guess so.
So what
they
do you
don't teach
think?
you much about magic in econ class.
Well, they should.
They really should. Mm-hmm. So what's kept you playing the game for so long? What do you love about Magic?
Well, that's a pretty good question. I'd say there's multiple parts to that. One is just like I'm a pretty competitive person, and I like to have a competitive outlet, and in that sense, Magic is perfect for me. Like, you get to have some amount of creativity, a lot of strategy. You get to think about it, and plan for it. Basically, any like spare moment that you feel like thinking about Magic, there's something cool that you can brainstorm about. And then, I like the actual like face-to-face competition of, in the same way that, a lot of other games would fit the bill, but just matching your wits against the, guy or girl across the table from you is fun for me. So that's the competitive aspect. But then there's also the social aspect, which, again, I enjoy just like going to a tournament or a convention or a local store, anything like that, and getting to meet a lot of people that have this shared hobby with me. And as I've played a lot more Magic and even traveled to play the game, it's cool to meet people that can be very, very different from me in most ways, but we still have this shared experience, this shared love of Magic. So I feel really thankful for the social aspect too. And then, of course, there's just the fact that I've been playing all my life and I have this nostalgia, and just holding like, a handful of 7 Magic cards in my hand feels really good for me, because it brings back all these memories and good feelings and all the stuff that, has been such a big part of my life.
I'm interested too about this competitive nature of the game that you're so drawn to. And you mentioned it like pretty early. You felt competitive when you played, like you're trying to beat your brother or his friends or something like that. Does this manifest itself in other areas of your life? Like, were you did you play sports? Were you constantly challenging people to battles of wits? What was it?
Yeah, I'm like a pretty natural competitor. It's just sort of like the way my brain is wired and stuff like that. Like, every time I pick up a new video game, it's like not just supposed to be fun, but it's like, how can I be the best? Like, how can I come up with the best strategy as quickly as possible? So yeah, like, my core group of friends that I've had like ever since I was little, we're all big gamers, and a lot of these guys, even though, some of them are big into Magic, some of them are not, but they're all like really like fiercely competitive, and they all, give me a run for my money and usually beat me when we play these other different games. I did some amount of sports, and I would just say like competition's sort of in the blood for me.
Meghan knows a little bit about that.
Yeah. I used to try and compete at everything until I found Magic. It was a really nice outlet. It's not great when you're trying to compete with people at like improv. Not a competition. Not a competition.
I've had difficulty with like, various like hobbies and endeavors like that, where I try to treat it as a competition, but it just doesn't. That's just doesn't translate.
Oh yeah, you bake those cookies? Well, watch this, buddy.
When we're like knitting, it's like, oh yeah. How fast are you going to finish that pattern?
Speaking of, we do have some fresh
I'm tracking
here.
my results to make sure I'm improving with, each day that I'm knitting, I can get more done in 1 hour, stuff like that. But, sometimes it's just like really, you got to relax, take a step back, and just enjoy yourself.
Absolutely.
But that's something that you do. I mean, that I believe you do. You track your results, and I heard stories about you making pretty extensive notes at tournaments that you would play at and stuff, to kind of be like, I made this mistake and I don't want to make it again or whatever.
Yeah, I tend to try to be as organized as possible in that way. One of my philosophies for Magic is sort of like quality over quantity when you're practicing. And a lot of people, I think, sometimes get frustrated because they just like play, put in all these hours. And then at the end, they're like, okay, now what? You know, like, what did I learn? Or like, what was this process leading up to? That kind of thing. And I really try to be more like process oriented and try to make efforts to like understand what's going on in the games, what's causing me to win and lose. And I think that can be like a way to, you know, accelerate how fast you're learning the game.
So you mentioned like quality over quantity. So I know that like some pro Magic players spend, you know, like upwards of like 8 to 10 hours a day practicing. But what does like a typical day in the life look like for you? In a week, like maybe you've got like a GP on the weekend that you're going to.
Yeah. Well, I lead a very unusual lifestyle, and in some sense, there's almost no like typical days. But yeah, you mentioned traveling to Grand Prix, so I travel most weekends of the year, maybe like, you know, 35 to 40 weekends out of the year. So a typical week is like, you know, I'm leaving Friday morning or afternoon, I'm getting home Monday afternoon or Monday night, and then I have Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to, you know, plan my next trip, practice for the tournament, write my articles, and of course do all my normal human being activities, like do my laundry and, you know, like see my friends and family and everything like that. Pay my bills, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's just like, I try to have as much of a schedule as possible, but a lot of it is just fitting in what I need to fit in wherever it fits, I guess, you know, just spending the hours on whatever the most pressing task is, and trying to be as organized as possible and look ahead to the future events and stuff like that, because sometimes you have to anticipate like, okay, I'm going to be so busy the week before this tournament that I need to, you know, prepare and figure out what I'm going to play further in advance. So yeah, it's all just basically a mess, and I got to figure it out as I go along.
That's life.
Yeah. I have one small recommendation. When you're so busy and you have a list of things to do, instead of doing laundry, you can just not do laundry.
Wow, that is
what
great. That is a great point.
Yeah, it's a great option. You know, it's just like, oh.
Along those lines, a typical day for me usually starts with writing a to-do list of like 12 or 15 things, and then getting like 3 of them done, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
These other 9 have to get pushed to tomorrow, and then add the 15 things I have to do tomorrow. And
that is scarily familiar.
Yeah. Do you like the life that being a professional Magic player has afforded you? I mean, a lot of people, I think, looking in from the outside, really don't know too much what it's like to have to, you know, make sure that you're playing tournaments every single weekend, you're writing articles, you're creating content, but then at the same time, you get to do something you really love. So, yeah, I just want to know how you feel about this as kind of a career choice for yourself.
On the whole, I love it. I love Magic, and I feel really thankful that I get to, you know, play this game for a living, and I definitely would not trade it for anything. There are some pros and cons, just like with any job, and part of the, you know, like the hectic travel schedule is definitely one of the cons, one of the stresses. So there are things that are not perfect about it, but all things considered, you know, being a pro Magic player is great, and it's the job for me.
Awesome. So you have 2 PT top 8s. Now you have 2 a couple of times behind the coverage desk. Your brother's in R&D. Like, what do you see as your long-term Magic goals? Because it really could go. It seems like you have kind of all of these directions that you could potentially go.
Yeah, and I guess this year is sort of like where I have to try to answer a lot of those questions for myself. You know, to decide where I'm going to put my focus coming up. I would say the main thing that I'm trying to emphasize, you know, not just to my coworkers and teammates and fans, but also to myself, is that I still want to be a player first. So I still want to make sure that I'm competing in all the Pro Tours and a good number of Grand Prix and giving myself, the best possible chance to qualify for the World Championships, because that is one of my goals that is still really important to me to accomplish, would be winning the World Championships and a Pro Tour possibly. So I'm not ready to, hang up my hat just yet. Maybe there will be a day somewhere down the road where, I step away from playing and more like other aspects, more get into other aspects of the game. But for now, I would say I'm really still trying to be as good as I can be as a player, and winning a Pro Tour is like a lifelong goal of mine. I still want to work towards that. And then I'm just dipping my toe in the water when it comes to coverage and some of these other things. And those are really fun and rewarding too, but I have to, keep the right balance.
Meghan mentioned your brother, Ian, who works in R&D. I want to know, like, how hard is it for you not to, when you see him at family events, be like, hey, so can you tell me what's really cool in Amonkhet? Can you just, like, just whisper it softly into my ear?
It's hard. As I mentioned, earlier, I grew up playing with Magic with my brother for nearly, over 15 years before he got his job at Wizards of the Coast. So we developed these habits, these ways of talking to each other. I remember with my brother, before every set came out, it was like we would sit down at the computer and look at the spoiler, and we would like talk about what cards we loved and didn't like, and I bet people are going to try to play with this card, but it's gonna be really bad, and we'd have all these like really specific predictions and stuff like that, and that was really fun. But now, like, I can't do that because we have very different perspectives on the cards, and he knows them ahead of time, and it would be not appropriate for him to like give me any advanced information, stuff like that. So a lot of the temptations and the habits that I developed talking to my brother like have gone out the window, so that's a little bit of a shame. But we still talk a lot about Magic, and now he comes home and I get to yell at him about all the things that I don't like. You got to unban this card in Modern, blah, 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 blah. And share all my opinions really forcefully, and he just sort of nods and goes like, okay,
I will take that under advisement.
I'll pass that opinion along.
It's a whole new perspective on like family, like holiday dinners where everybody's just like, oh gosh, man, I really hope that Reid's not going to yell at Ian again. Oh man.
That's so cute though. I mean, to be able to share something that you're both so passionate about with your brother, I think is a really neat connection that a lot of people don't get to have.
Yeah, I mean, who would have guessed when we were little kids that we would not only both still be interested in Magic as adults, but also have like two very different, career paths within the game. It's pretty cool.
All right, so what is your favorite format and why?
I get this question a lot, and the real answer is, for somebody that plays as much Magic as me, I just feel really thankful that there are as many different formats as possible. Like, variety is the spice of life type of thing. And if I had to play the same format week in and week out, I'm sure I would get sick of the game a lot faster. So I really like the mix of limited and constructed. I really like being able to play standard and modern and legacy. I really appreciate the fact that there are a lot of different formats to play within Magic. If I had to choose one as my favorite, I like sealed deck. That's a bit of an unusual choice, but I just really like, I feel like sealed deck is like, in a way, the purest form of playing Magic, where, it's a little slower. The cards are not as powerful. You don't have quite as many resources to work with, and you just have to you have to use the really basic skills of Magic instead of leaning behind like a really powerful deck or something like that. And
what do you say to people who think that sealed is just really luck based?
Well, I would say give it a little more of a chance. They're not exactly wrong. There is a lot of luck in sealed deck, and for example, it can be hard to get a bigger edge in sealed deck. So for example, if you're like a really, really, really strong player and you can win 70% of your draft matches, you might not expect to also win 70% of your sealed deck matches, but you can definitely win a lot more than 50% if you are good at the format and work hard at it. But so that's a little bit of a weird segue about exactly what the meaning of luck within Magic. But anyway, there is luck in sealed deck, but it's also really important to have these basic skills and to be as disciplined as possible and not just give up if you don't like the cards that you've opened or anything like that. So yeah, I really like, practicing sealed deck and going to a Grand Prix where sealed deck is the format on day one.
Awesome.
I think that's my favorite format.
In Constructed, do you have a favorite deck of all time?
Yes, my favorite deck of all time was the old standard Jund deck from, let's see, original Innistrad that had Hunmaster of the Fells and Thragtusk and Bonfire of the Damned. That was just the most fun for me. I loved it.
Yeah, I remember that. That was a deck like right when we started playing.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't really know much about Standard for quite a while after I started learning. You followed Standard before I did. I remember that.
It was just a little bit because it was the original Innistrad, and then we started playing during RTR, which it transitioned into RTR a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a question I love to ask everybody who comes on the show, and it sounds a little weird, but I want to know why you're good at Magic. Some people, we've had wildly different answers of what makes you able to win a ridiculous number of GPs. What do you think your special skills that you bring to the table? Literally. Sorry.
Well, I would like to think that it goes a little bit back to what I mentioned earlier with the quality over quantity in terms of practice. I think my advantage over some of my colleagues or up and coming players is that I am pretty organized, and I think I have a good process for learning and preparing for tournaments. But basically, the answer is just many years of hard work. I don't think I have any particular ingrained talent for the game. I just sort of am a competitive guy who tries really hard, and after a lot of years of trying really hard, this is where I've landed.
What do you think makes for good quality practice?
Minimal
distractions. I've been for sure known to just fire off a bunch of drafts and not really think about them, just play. And I guess that's probably what you mean, is that you're focusing on every decision you make, or?
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, there's still it's still fine to just play Magic and have fun and not really take it too seriously. And there's also a time and a place for that, even within my own process. Sometimes my goal is just let me get in as many games in the shortest amount of time as possible, and that's a useful tool too. But you should mix that in if your goal is to improve with some amount of playing where you're just really focused and not distracted by outside things, and you're actually trying to give the game a level of attention where you're processing what's happening and what are the causes for what's happening. And the game ends and it's easy to just go okay, I won or I lost, let's go to the next game. But if you take just a brief moment to be well, what was the key to that game? Why did one player lose and why did one player win? Then you can quickly get a deeper understanding of what's going on in the games of Magic and actually, lead to, major breakthroughs either in the decks that you're building or the way you're playing the games, stuff like that.
Yeah. So you've mentioned putting in a lot of practice over time, but do you feel there was any particular, a lesson, a match, an event where you had kind of a turning point in terms of going from
leveling up?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, a big part of leveling up in Magic is going to be learning from talented players. So probably the biggest turning point in my career was joining the Pantheon, my current Pro Tour testing team. And for my first 2 years on the Pro Tour, I didn't have that much success. And I didn't have an extensive network of people to practice with. I had, my brother Ian and my cousin Logan Nettles, who's a really good Pro Tour player as well. And we would practice together and discuss the game and everything. But that's not the same as that's not the same like type of resources that long run pro players have access to, where they have giant teams and like networks, and they can share all these ideas and have other people build decks for them and stuff like that. I didn't have that for my first couple of years on the Pro Tour. So when I joined the team that we now call the Pantheon, I had the pleasure of just getting beaten mercilessly by like all the best players in the history of Magic. And that's a way that, you know, just like when I was 5 and my older brother was beaten up on the kitchen table, it was like that's the fastest way you're going to improve. Because it's like, I don't want to play a draft and just go 0-3 every time. Like, what am I going to do to be able to like compete against these guys? So that, along with just the individual conversations and lessons I learned from all of those different really talented players, was, as you say, like a way to level up, I think.
I personally want to know what you can tell us. We're not going to tell anybody else, but how can we level up our Ether Revolt draft? Because,
oh my God,
let me tell you,
we're not doing
right now.
Yeah, it's tough out there. It's no joke. If I had one like specific tip for Ether Revolt draft, that's different from a lot of other draft formats, is just pay really close attention to how many lands you're putting in your deck. I think it's easy to just be like, oh, you play 17 lands in booster draft, like, period, that's it, and not think too much about it. But Ether Revolt's very unique in the sense that, well, it's pretty fast format, so you're probably not going to have too many expensive cards in your deck. B, there are a lot of cards that cantrip, like the implements, or the name's escaping me. This unbridled growth type card, the enchant land, sacrifice to draw a card. And then there's also stuff like Renegade Map, where you just directly, like, this card, Renegade Map attuned with Ether, these cards sort of are mana sources. So weighing all these things, like, makes for a much different picture than when you just have a really, like, vanilla basic deck like you might have in, you know, M15 or something like that. And sometimes you have to be willing to play 16 lands or even 15 or 14, you know, depending on the exact configuration of these cards that you have
14
in your deck. So, yeah. Not saying that that's like a try at your own risk type of advice, but the point is just to, you know, to pay close attention to it and not take it for granted that you should always play 17.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. In fact, Maria was the first person who was like, I've been putting 16, I've been putting 16, and I was like, wait a second.
Because it's so funny, because the normal thing you think is, I'm focusing on the creatures and the quality of the spells and whatever in my deck and how it works together and the synergy that lands is sometimes, you know, not even a fifth
like
thought.
Yeah.
Afterthought. It's an after dinner.
Yeah, it's definitely like an underappreciated aspect of limited Magic, I think, because if you have played a lot of limited, you know that one of the easiest ways to lose is just like you trade resources with your opponent, and then by the end of the game, oh shoot, I've drawn like 3 or 4 more lands than my opponent, I lose, you know? So if Mana Flood is one of the most common ways that a game of limited is going to be decided, then it stands to reason that you should like really care about the number of lands that you're putting in your deck. One of my, you know, Magic mentors is Gerard Fabiano, who's known as being like a little bit of like an off the beaten path type of player. And he developed a strategy a few years ago where he would just play like 12 lands in his limited deck, and all his cards would cost 1 and 2 mana and stuff. And nobody would, like, you know, people don't even take that seriously. They just go like, oh, that's Gerard being Gerard. But there's definitely things to learn from players like Gerard, and I think that was something where he was on to a really cool concept that not a lot of people think about.
Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Let's ask our other famous PROthering question,
yes.
Meghan. If you could change one thing about Magic, what would it be and why?
Well, I would say I would try to, you know, in a perfect world, I would like the game to be a little bit slower than it is in modern day. Like, just to take current standard for an example, like you have the 2 best decks of Mardu Vehicles and Black Green. These decks are just way too fast and powerful. Like, they have 10 power and toughness in play on the third turn of the game, which means that if you have a bad draw or one of your lands comes into play tapped on the wrong turn, like you're just dead. There's not a lot of flexibility and a lot of room to leverage your your creativity or your play skill. And it also, from a broader perspective, like I've felt like I've been teased a bit with Kaladesh and Ether Revolt as a deck builder, because there's so many like awesome things that you should be able to do by like combining these cards in cool ways. But if you actually want to be like 100% competitive, just none of these cool things are going to compete with getting attacked by a 5/5 Heart of Kirin on the third turn of the game.
I don't know what's so wrong with that.
Everything's wrong with it.
I mean, then as the aggro player, I feel like I have to defend myself, but I absolutely see what you're saying.
I mean, do you? You don't. That's the point.
Yeah,
that you're
don't
only
get me wrong, I
attacking.
like beatdown decks. I like to attack too. It's just the fact that things are like so punishing. I wish it could just be like one notch slower, where you don't feel like you're dead if you have a bad opening hand or anything like that.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair.
I only in Dublin I only wrote a handful of like written feature matches, but every single one that I did, no game went past turn 6.
Really?
Which was just
Wow.
completely crazy.
That
like
is.
I've never had that happen, sitting and watching finals of GPs or anything like that. It was just, and we're talking about like 3 or 4 matches that I saw, and however many games. It was really,
I believe Magic is the best and the most fun when games can be either fast or slow. Like you have to prepare yourself like to face like the fast aggro rushes, but also have a plan for the longer game. And when it gets to be too extreme in one direction or the other, I think it gets kind of lame.
Yeah.
About the,
harsh words.
drafts. Like I'm sure you've had the feeling of your opponent plays Renegade Freighter on turn 3, and
Oh god.
Oh yeah.
you just have a bunch of like 1/1s and 2/2s, and you're like, yep, like
I'm
glad
to
to
this train.
I don't know why those trains. I mean, I love those trains, but I also hate those trains because those trains are the real deal.
Yeah, they're brutal.
Brutal.
Oh, Untethered
Definitely.
Express, because we needed a
How is
better
that real?
Renegade Freighter.
Did you look at your brother in the eye and say, "Untethered Express, explain yourself"?
I should have next time I see him.
Okay,
Like,
thank
who
you.
looked at Renegade Freighter and was like, this card
fine.
is good, but could be better.
Yeah, true.
So since we're on talking about limited sets right now, if you could design or if you could like theme any set, like Maria notoriously her theme set would be
It's Huey Lewis in the News 80s hair metal band's theme
Yes.
set.
Oh
Yes.
wow, I would play that.
Yes.
Ah, yes.
Mine is a waffle and generally breakfast themed set. So if you could theme a set, what would you theme it after?
All right. Well, I haven't had as much time to prepare my answers.
That's fair.
Yes, we
Fair.
sprung this one
I know,
on
we
you.
really did.
Within the things that are like
Real?
in the realm of like what Magic might cover, like.
Are you telling
you
me
saying
that
that
waffles or
ridiculous?
Huey Lewis in the News is not?
No, those are both.
Okay, good.
But I don't know. I'm a big fan of like ever since I was a kid, just like the King Arthur legends and stuff like that. Just sort of like the. I mean, it's sort of like the classic Magic, right? Like Knights and Dragons and stuff like that. But I would like to see a new set that's like a throwback to that stuff, Alpha and Beta and stuff like that. And in particular, I love Arthurian legend, and anything that's like a reference to that would really strike a chord with me.
That would be pretty
That
amazing.
is a really good. I can't believe. So we're
And
gonna have an
maybe-
offline chat
maybe-
about Arthur and legend stuff because I'm huge on it. But like I hadn't ever
is that
thought.
right?
I hadn't ever thought of it, and so this is like getting
Yeah.
me really excited because I'm like, that's a great idea because then
Yeah.
you could have like the wizard set, and Merlin is kind of like the king of the blue cards essentially, and there's fairies. Oh, it all works.
That's actually Merlin's full card name is Merlin, King of the Blue Cards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
that would be amazing.
Oh, I
and
can
maybe
help?
I will admit that it is slightly more within the realm of possibility
Fine.
than 80s hair metal.
I will stretch
but
that.
only a little bit. Only a little.
We could have the two dragons fighting underground, then so the castle can't stand. That's a cool card.
Yep.
Oh, okay, anyway.
Okay.
Great idea. And finally, like, what are some interesting hobbies or other things that you do in your life that people might not know about you? Like, what's your hair care regimen? Just kidding.
All that stuff's just pretty normal. A hobby. Well, I guess one of my hobbies, I enjoy trivia, and if being a career Magic player isn't nerdy enough, I'm practicing to go play Jeopardy night at the local library next week. So
That's amazing.
That's so cool.
that's my fun fact, I guess.
What's your number one category that you're like, oh, I
Yeah,
hope they
it's
ask
like,
something in
this
this
is it.
category?
Magic flavor text.
Wait, okay, so
Hold on, I got
can you give us
quiz.
give us an idea of exactly how good you feel you are at Magic flavor text? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, what?
I'm pretty good. Like if you were to ask me
Maria's. I mean, be prepared because Maria is googling a card right now.
text from one of the recent sets, I think I would have a pretty good shot at getting the card.
Okay,
All
so
right.
this one's pretty famous, but so it was the first one that popped into my mind.
Okay.
Malfist Doorbuster, which was one of my favorite flavor texts.
Oh, so you give me the
You have
card
to
and
go
ask me
the
to do
other way
flavor
around.
text.
Oh, I have to do the flavor
That's a
text and
much
then-
harder way to do it.
Oh, okay. Well, I went to hard mode immediately.
Sometimes I can get it like that, but I don't know if I know the Malfist Doorbuster. I'm sure it's just
It's ridiculous.
Something
Do you
like
remember,
Which one
Meghan?
was it? No, I just remembered all of the alternative names for him.
Oh, yeah. It's knock knock, too late.
That's really
Okay,
really good.
okay. I've
That's really
got to
good.
think of. I'm like. Let me think of another one here. Here's the one that's just coming into my brain. Oh, I
Okay.
typed it wrong.
we used to sometimes play the game on like long car rides where Gatherer has just like a random card generator, and
Okay, here's one.
people will just give me the random flavor text off of a random card from any set. They
No
just read
way.
that and try to
Okay.
guess.
All right, here you go. This is from the current set. Conflict breeds opportunity. That's kind of like really vague, but
Conflict breeds opportunity.
I mean, I would never know.
I would
that.
never.
Never.
It rings a bell. Let me think about that for one moment.
this is going to be a weekly feature on Match with the Amateur. Stump
Yeah,
read.
it sounds like I don't know. It sounds like a Tezzeret type of line, but I don't know if I'm.
So the card is blue. I'll give you that.
It is blue.
Yes.
Conflict breeds opportunity.
Oh, I've got a good.
Yeah, I don't think I'm gonna get this
All
one.
right.
I'm shamed here, publicly shamed.
This one, I picked something really random. It's
Yes.
Shielded Ether Thief. Shielded Ether
Okay,
Thief.
okay.
Yes.
Okay, Megan.
Okay, here we go. Subtlety is not a necessary part of sabotage.
Whoa.
Is that incendiary sabotage?
No, it is not. It is a rare from Ether Revolt.
Jeez.
Right?
That's so weird.
It is.
Never have read that piece of text.
Neither have I.
Me neither.
I would guess Release the Gremlins, although I think that has a different flavor text.
Ooh, now I
The
want to
flavor
know.
text on Release the Gremlins. That one is Greenbelt Rampager.
Greenbelt Rampager, which
Okay,
is
okay.
interesting because this was initially not a creature.
It wasn't?
No, it
What
was
was it?
It was supposed to be a spell, but they changed it in to an elephant because of the art. They needed a creature or
What
something.
did it do as a spell?
I don't know. I just
Well then.
I don't know. I don't
Well then.
know. Okay, let's see if we can get like one that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, that one.
Okay. All right. Ether. Oh wait. Which
Wait,
one do I read the
this
flavor
one-
text?
Yeah, you read it.
Ether is the soul of Kaladesh, and all souls should be free. We had just stumped him.
Yeah. I feel like.
Is that Rogue Refiner?
Oh no!
No.
Rishkar, Pima Renegade.
Okay. Well, the point's taken. I got to stop studying for Jeopardy.
Okay, how about this one? How about this
Text.
one? Get out of my way.
Oh.
I would never think.
No, that one is very strange.
Get out of my way. I mean, it actually is what the card does,
Yeah.
but it's not a very. it's not really a thing I would associate with this color.
No. I see what you're doing, dropping subtle clues here.
I'm trying to throw a bone. That's Viral's expertise, believe it or not.
I feel like if you ask any more, it's being mean.
Okay, we're done.
Yeah, I guess I definitely have to work on the Ether Revolt cards in particular. But.
Okay, we won't show up to your library trivia night and screw you over.
Like write in, excuse me, I have a Jeopardy category that I need you to put in.
Just an anonymous note with like $5 bill slipped into it.
I'll know who's behind it.
Okay, you're right.
The library's gonna be like, what is this?
We never get donations like this.
Okay, outside the world of Magic, what would you say like your number one Jeopardy category is?
There's certain things that I used to be really, really strong on that I've sort of gotten a bit rusty, but like most history, I'm pretty good with European history or like Chinese history, Spanish history. I'm really good with. Then I'm okay with classical music.
Okay,
but,
we're now gonna Google some classical songs.
Yeah, and make you identify within the first 5 seconds. We really turned this interview.
Yep, around.
So before we go, I just wanted to also ask you one final question, which was just to talk a little bit about what you think Magic has taught or given you as a person in your life.
Yeah, that's just such a tough question because Magic has been such a big part of my life for such a long time that picking any particular like tidbit almost feels like it's not doing it justice. But let me see if I can come up with any specifics. Question was how has Magic?
Like what is it?
Like
what
anything that it's like taught you or given you.
I mean, we did have somebody say everything,
Yeah.
So it really doesn't have to be specific. Because for you,
yeah, I mean,
it's just been there for such a long time.
It has been there for such a long time. I mean, I like I said, to name specific things feels like it's underselling. But I do remember, when I was in grade school, for example, like Magic just helped me a lot in school. Like it taught me a lot of vocabulary words. I basically, most of my reading was done like on Magic related stuff, and makes you more interested, gives you better application for like certain aspects of math and probability and everything like that. So yeah, I mean, just like cultivating the basic skills that you need to play the game, I think makes you generally a smarter person. And if you're a student, that can help you. Yeah, I mean, I could probably go on for hours with this question, but the basic thing is like I would be a completely different person if not for Magic. And yeah, there's a lot of like specific things that we could go into, but I am who I am because of Magic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, it's been an absolute delight talking to you, Reid. Thank you so much for coming on and having a chat with us.
Yeah, I had a great time. It was more challenging interview than I'm used to with all the trivia questions, but I did have a great time, and I really appreciate you both inviting me onto the show.
If people want to see your stuff or read your words, where can they find you on the internet?
Well, channelfireball.com. I produce weekly content there. You can reach me on Twitter. I'm at Reid Duke. And then a newer project that we're working on is our team website and streaming channel. That's Pantheon Magic. I've been streaming. I'm new to streaming a little bit, but you can check me out there. Twitch TV/Pantheon Magic.
Awesome. Well, thank you again so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yay! Sweet. Okay, I'm going to stop my recording.